Welcome to Inside the Vault, Enterprise Bank's podcast series where we talk about items of interest to the small business community. Today, we're going to hear another entrepreneur story. With me today is Rashid Hassan, who has a new indoor tennis facility in Monroeville that he just opened, along with the assistance of the bank. Rashid, welcome to Inside the Vault.
Thank you for having me.
So, all good stories start at the beginning.
Sure.
So, obviously, opening a tennis facility, you have to have some tennis background.
That's right.
And then also some business background. So let's kind of start with your history,
Okay.
Both in the sport and in providing training services to student athletes and others in the tennis realm.
Sure. Firstly, I grew up in Zimbabwe, born and raised there. Came from a tennis family. My dad was one of the best players in the country, but it was kind of a weird situation because I grew up in at that time it was called Rhodesia.
Okay.
And so I was born in 1975. In 1980, it gained its independence, and it became Zimbabwe. At the time that my dad was playing tennis, he could have done a lot more, but under those rules, apartheid rules and stuff like that, he wasn't allowed to play because of him being of Indian descent,
Gotcha.
So he started teaching me when I was, 3-4 years old, and just started working with me. And he was, at the end of the day, my dad was one of the best coaches in the world. He taught 17 Grand Slam champions, and just traveled the world with the ITF and did a lot of work for them. And he was the Davis Cup coach for Zimbabwe at the time, and he started working with me. And I just, grew up playing tennis, juniors, played all the junior Grand Slams in the world, and eventually came to college and played college tennis.
Where'd you play college at?
Freshman year, I was at the University of Texas.
Okay.
We lost in the Final Four NCAAs that year. And then I transferred to University of Alabama.
Okay.
And finished my career in college at University of Alabama. Ended up getting hurt the following year. Was about to turn pro. Ended up hurting my wrist. And that kind of did me in for the
pro circuit.
My uncle, who is the president of the USPTA, which is the governing body for tennis coaches, he brought me to Pittsburgh. He's the reason I came to Pittsburgh. And I was working under him. His name's Faisal Hassan, and I was working under him. And eventually he left Pittsburgh, and I stayed.
Yeah.
And
What did you come to the States from Zimbabwe for school, or were you here before that?
No, I came for school.
Okay.
Specifically for school. Was recruited for tennis.
Okay.
To Texas, basically wanted to go pro. If
Right.
you're going to schools like that,
Mm-hmm.
you're going pro, or that's the game plan. So it ended me up in Pittsburgh, and then started just building my program, junior program.
What year time frame did you start coaching?
I started coaching, I would say, probably around 99, 2000.
Okay.
I started the academy in about 2002.
Okay. So you worked for others as a coach initially?
So I was at the Racket Club. It used to be called the Racket Club in
Monroeville. Right.
In Monroeville. And in 2005, a family member of ours, as myself and another partner, we ended up buying it from Oxford.
Okay.
The Racket Club. We used to call it Club for Life.
Mm-hmm.
I was there for 5 years, built my program and stuff like that. And then the direction I wanted the club to go and the direction they wanted the club to go were two different directions. So I just opted out and just to focus on the academy. And then I left them with the club in 2010 and then just started branching off on my own.
Okay. And we'll talk about the new facility here in a minute, but before that, you were using multiple facilities for training,
I was
right?
renting everywhere. Yeah. I mean, I had like 3-4 different places renting, traveling, kids here, kids there, just multitasking consistently for like at least, I would say, almost 14 years.
Wow. And you've had some pretty good successes with some of your athletes that you've trained, right?
Yep, absolutely. We've had a number of, majority of the kids that we teach end up going to college and playing college ball. Some of them end up going pro because they're that good. But majority, I think over 300 to 400 kids we've had through the program over the 25 years have played college tennis.
Any idea how many of them ended up in the pro realm?
We've had about maybe at least 5 to 10 that have attempted to go pro.
Yeah.
And kind of get to a point where it's like, hey, maybe it's not worth it. Maybe, it just money is financial, how much it takes, the effort it takes. We currently have a kid right now that was number 1 at Penn State and just has one more year left and decided to get onto the transfer portal. And
so they have the portal in college tennis now
absolutely.
Too. Okay.
And so they just got into the transfer portal, and out of the top 30 teams in the country, within 5 hours of him in the portal, 26 offered him NIL and full ride. And he just signed with Ohio State. That's like top 3, top 4 in the country.
I was going to say, who are the top collegiate tennis programs in the country these days?
You get most of the SEC teams, most of the Big 12 teams. You got your Big 10 teams, TCU, now Texas is SEC. Alabama's, you got your Georgias, you got your Dukes, your Virginias, your Wake Forest, stuff like that. So, on any given day, if you really see the score lines of those kind of teams, it's like 4-3.
Right.
And next day they could have lost 4-3.
Gotcha.
It's like it's
pretty
just
competitive.
Too close, very close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you were running all these places,
Sure.
How many, geographically, what was the scope of where your kids were coming from?
And I had kids, I have kids coming from the North Hills, so as far as Cranberry. Then you got the Upper St. Clairs and Peters. Then you've got the Monroevilles and the Greensburgs, Moon Township, all the way out there. So pretty much everywhere, just because our program is primarily catered to...
I was going to ask you what
It's primarily catered to, you want to go play college tennis or you want to play at a high level of tennis, this is where you come.
Yeah, and when do you typically start kids in your program? What age?
They can start at 6 or 7 years old. But when they come, people will kind of see that it's not just like a 1 day, 2 day a week kind of deal. You're either there for 4 days to 5 days. And the crazy part about it is that I have enough data over the last 24 years to know if this is what you want to do, this is what you have to do. And it's all mapped out. I've figured out the formula to get you there if you do this way. And you're going to get some of the parents who think they know, but it doesn't always work out.
Having been involved in youth coaching over the years, and one of my friends more intensely than I, they have a harder time dealing with the parents than with the kids.
Correct. Yeah, it's the same thing. But,
so what was kind of the genesis of you opening your own facility?
I think for me it was right after COVID. We blew up. It went crazy with the amount of kids that are now starting to want to play tennis and, call it because it was like, more individual, we're in team, all that kind of stuff. And I was tired of renting. I was just paying so much out of rent and it was becoming just like nothing to show at the end of the day.
And probably inconsistency among the facilities, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. How many different facilities were you working on?
I was using three different facilities.
Wow.
3 different facilities. And it was like I'll give an example. I have a program going on here, but all of a sudden I want to do 2 extra hours with these kids, but I can't get the courts.
Because someone else at
the courts.
Gotcha.
And so that was the kind of I was like, something's got to change now, because I feel like we're getting to a point where, you can handle 10 or 12 kids at that highest level, but now we're getting into like the 20 people range and we don't have enough courts to support that. So what do I do now?
Right.
And so that was the whole coming to.
Yeah. So how did you decide where you wanted to be?
I felt like, I think the really cool thing was that when I left the club at Monroeville and I started I was at Lakeview, then I was at NIT in the city when it used to be out there. Then I moved up to Monroeville, and I was at Edgewood Country Club, and I'll just do kind of my rounds. You can kind of see the area's development in Pittsburgh. A really cool story that I always tell people was Eddie Lewis, who was the owner for Oxford Development. I used to teach his kids, and he had just purchased the land where Oxford North is at right now. And they were developing that whole area of Wexford. And I felt like there was so much happening there, but everything had kind of still disappeared from the east. And there was nothing in the east.
And you still have the issue of Pittsburghers not crossing rivers
and stuff like that, right? So I felt like in the east, it was nice because you could get the turnpike coming into Monroeville. You get the parkway coming into Monroeville. You got 22 and 48 right there. And if people are willing to go to the best, then they'll travel.
Gotcha.
And so I just felt like that place was just going to be nicely secluded from all the crazy that's out there that's developing. And I just got my little home there. I know how it can maneuver and stuff like that. So it was good like that.
Right. So we'll talk about the construction process, which is never any fun.
No, never fun.
But what were you looking for in designing your facility?
So I knew from my experience, being at the Monroeville Club, we had 13 indoor tennis courts. And I knew that 97%, and we did this specifically for this reason, 97% of our revenue for tennis came on 7 courts. And 3% was coming on the other courts that were across the other side of the facility.
Right.
And I was like, well, what's the point of having that? Let's turn that into field turf.
Gotcha.
So we turned that into field turf so we could just keep the 97% over here, right? The other thing at that club there, we had 4 outdoor tennis courts. So what I realized was 4 tennis courts for what program I need, and in general, it's a perfect balance. Number one, you're busy during the winter months, a little bit in the fall, a little bit in the spring. But in the summertime, it gets dead because everybody goes outside.
Right.
But you can fill 3 courts or 4 courts, but you can't fill 6 courts.
Gotcha.
So there's no point in having 6 courts. Keep the 4. People will come in and out. You'll be able to use it on the 4. But 6, you'll always have 2 standing alone, no matter what.
Gotcha.
During those dead months. So that was what the whole reason was, to build the 4 courts and have a little lounge area for people to come and watch. So
when did you start your process?
Okay. The process started 3 years ago.
Okay.
Maybe 3.5, actually. I think I met with you guys in the office and that was like kind of the beginning of it. The idea and the concept maybe about 6 months before that. But then the really push through was about three years ago to get that done.
And obviously the site that you chose,
sure.
Great from a locational perspective, had some challenges you had to work through, right?
Totally. The site was it was at the highest point of Monroeville, so you could say highest point of like Allegheny County in terms of where it was situated. But we had to have a lot of like water or the retention ponds, all that kind of stuff. Set aside the piping, all that for that particular location. There's a lot of rock that was on the property. We had to build a massive. This retaining wall is huge, pretty but huge. But yeah, we had to do all those kind of things just to get the site just prepped up, ready for this building.
Before the building. And how many square feet is the building?
The building comes to about almost 30,000 square feet.
Okay.
Total. Yeah.
And you've got 4 indoor.
4 indoor and a lounge area that people can come and sit and watch and sit there and hang out. There's a TV in there. The kids kind of just like have lunch and just hang out there for a bit. Yeah, so it's been pretty good.
And then you've got a few outside?
No
outside?
Nothing outside right now. So, okay. Yeah, the nice part about it is that I have a reciprocal relationship with the school district. So, when the kids come and train, they train in our program and we can use their facilities for whatever we want to use them for.
I'm assuming you have pretty good density of kids from Gateway, Franklin Regional, the locals out that way.
Very much so. A lot of kids from that area, and a lot of kids. I mean, we get kids from everywhere. You know, we average it on a daily basis. Maybe we have two programs a day. The first programs, we start teaching the kids coming in around 11, 12 o'clock during the day. They leave school early. Those are the really intense kids.
Yeah.
They have about a 3-hour session with us. Then they kind of go get lunch. At that time, 3:30, all the kids from school start rolling in. We do pickups at Shadyside Academy. So we pick up on average 5 to 7 kids from Shadyside daily that come in at around 3:30, 4 o'clock, and they're there till 6:30. On average, you're looking at about maybe 20 kids to 25 kids for the day.
For the day.
Yeah.
What's the total scope of the number of athletes you're working with? Let's say right now.
Probably between 40 and 70.
Okay.
You know, and when I get to the 70 range, those are like the kids that maybe come twice a week.
Right.
But in general, we have about 70 kids in the program.
Okay.
Total.
And how late in the evenings do you?
We go to 6:30.
Okay.
So we'll start like 11 and finish at 6:30, and then at 6:30 we have other groups of tennis players coming in to use the facility. Correct.
So if a group wants to come in and rent the facility or rent a court, they can do that after training sessions are over.
Absolutely.
Or I'm assuming if they want it earlier in the day.
Correct. So we have right now I have contract with Carnegie Mellon.
Okay.
They've been using the facility since January for practices and for matches. So they're coming in and out. But this coming year they'll come in a lot more just because I didn't open up in.
I was going to say, what was your opening date?
Just January.
Yeah.
So they were already set with whoever they went to, and kind of just mixed it in and out. The Pitt Club. Pitt has a club team. They want to use it too. I have some USTA leagues that have started. So they're using that too. So it's going to become a balance for me because you want to please everybody,
right?
But now it's like the time is going to be tight. So some people are going to have to make adjustments,
right?
So I think from like 6:30 to like 11, 10 o'clock on certain days of the week is going to be just slammed, and then in the morning.
It's amazing to me, talk about a similar type sport, hockey. Yeah. I mean, a lot of ice you can't get until like 11 p.m. or the middle of the night.
Absolutely.
Good problems to have for those facilities.
And I think with 4 courts, I think that's why it's possible to fill them.
Right.
Because you don't have to worry about, then they want to take 3 courts, and then the 3 just lay idle. So that was pretty good.
Yeah. So what's the early success?
It's been
like
it's been really good. Actually, it's kind of like for me, it's not paying rent to where I was going. I mean, that was like that was just nuts, just paying that amount of money.
Well,
not getting.
And I can tell you from the banker standpoint.
Yes.
When we looked at it, we're like, wow, if you turn that rent into mortgage payment, and plus just the logistical challenges of having to cover all these facilities.
Absolutely, and then. So I had that. So that was really, really nice. Just because now it's like, he needs another lesson. But take that court. I can increase my revenue as I want just because I can have extra lessons that I never could. Mm-hmm. So the kids are getting better because the kids that never used to get the lessons, because you always it's kind of like sad because you want to give everybody the chance, right? But you're only limited with so many courts and so much time. But now because we have that extra court, we can always say, hey, you go over there and take your lesson. You never got one. So you go and you start building up the levels, and that just helps the kids in general.
So what kind of support staff do you have to help you?
We have four pros that help us. My dad, actually, he helps me too. He's very kind of like rigid in what he wants.
Wasn't he in the Olympic trials?
Yeah, he went to the Olympics. He was an Olympic coach. Yeah, he was an Olympic coach.
That's
amazing. He's been everywhere. Like he's pretty well known around the world, tennis world.
Can he still hit the ball pretty well?
He can hit the ball. He can hit the ball. But yeah, no, it's been good. And then
who wins when you guys play?
No, I now. But when I was younger, it got a little bit dicey there for a bit. It was intense.
I can understand that.
Good.
So, mostly student athletes,
sure.
And then you have adults using the facility for leagues or for playing with their friends, that type of.
Yeah.
What's What's the mix male-female typically?
It in terms of the junior program?
Yeah.
You know what? It's really interesting. It's so cyclical. It's sometimes I'll have 15 boys and 3 girls. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, and then some generation down the road, I'll be like 12 girls, 12 boys. Some guys,
who are easier to coach, the boys or the girls?
It's yeah, that's a little tough one there.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Think about that. I actually, it's interesting
because I have two girls and one boy,
the girls are tougher. They are tough. They there's like I don't know what it is, but they can, once they get to a certain competitive level, they're nails. They're like in hardcore, and they can take just the toughness of what they have to deal with,
Right.
The boys, it just depends on their personalities. It really more so that I think with them, it's just a matter of like they tend to get to a point a little later, but they eventually get to it, So it's been good like that, But yeah, different. Definitely different.
Reason I ask is I have 2 girls and 1 boy, and you raise them very differently.
Very differently. Very, very differently. No, it's true.
So you mentioned different programs you have. Just for our viewers and listeners, what's kind of a smattering of some of the different options that kids have?
So we have the really high level players for their group. It's more invitation.
Okay.
Because you have to have a certain level to play in it, number 1.
Right.
And number 2 is there might be a kid that's good, young. He could actually do it, but you're worried about him getting hurt because the ball's getting hit at such a fast pace. And we're talking guys that are hitting at 60, 70 mile per hour ground strokes, but are banging in 120 mile per hour serves.
Yeah.
Right. So you catch that a little late and you're a young kid, that shoulder is going to start, they can tear up your shoulder. So I always kind of like watch to see because the kids, he could definitely play.
Right.
But you're just not sure if he's able to hold up before he starts getting pain,
Right.
So
I'm assuming beyond just playing tennis and practicing tennis,
sure.
They have a physical fitness regimen.
We have a professional physical trainer that's there 4 times a week that works with the kids, and that's a choice of the parents.
Okay.
If they want him to work with them, the more dedicated kids are in.
Yeah.
The other kids are starting to learn what it takes to get to that level, and then they become in. So
Right.
that's what really happens. The kids will come, they'll realize this is a little bit intense, then there's a choice to make. And then they got to decide. But then at 3:30, the rest of the kids come from school, all different levels.
Okay.
And we focus a lot on footwork, movement, targets, technique, all that kind of stuff.
So I'm assuming you set them up in kind of similar skill levels.
Just to practice those situations, And then the really good kids jump in that group too, as more like they're working on their technique, working on their footwork. But it gets the younger kids to watch, motivate them to do it. So that's always been my formula. I always feel like a lot of people always want to play with better people, and I always feel like you got to beat the person that's not good. You got to beat them, then keep plugging on,
right?
Because it's a fear factor. You don't want to lose to somebody who's worse than you, right? But in order to get,
and those off days really hurt.
Correct. Totally. And you have to beat them. So then you'll just keep progressing as you get,
Yeah.
So it's been good.
So let's talk a little bit about our relationship,
Sure.
the bank and you and your facility.
Yeah.
So, we used, some pretty creative financing, which ultimately at the end of the day was of good benefit.
Very good.
To you. Yeah. We use the SBA 504 program, which for those viewers and listeners have probably heard me tout the benefits of that program.
Totally.
So you got to work with Becky McBlain at RDFC on that.
Yes.
And then we used, I think, Banking on Business program.
That's it.
So, we were able to creatively put together a financing package for. How was the relationship?
I tell you what.
Because it wasn't easy, because there was a moving target at some points.
No, it wasn't easy. But I think for me, it was knowing that I could I could come to you guys. 'Cause,
Yeah.
you know, for me, I'm not in this business. I don't understand it. But the way you guys handled it and talked to me and walked me through it and told me what I needed and all that kind of stuff, and that to me was the most important. You know, I gave an explanation earlier today, and I basically said that the way I felt was this was everything a big bank can offer, but it was condensed, and you guys had everything just perfectly, just what I wanted, you know, and helped me through it with all the hiccups that we went through.
Right.
You guys were there, you know, Randy was there, everybody was there just to kind of like say, hey, okay, let's wait, let's do this, let's do that, you know, and then just plug through it.
Right.
You know,
right. Well, we appreciate the relationship. You were, you know, a very accommodating borrower, understanding that we were throwing a lot of alphabet soup at you and different things with different programs.
Absolutely.
But, you know, it's all kind of behind. You're open. So what's the future look like for you?
I think for me, it's a matter of, you know, there's a little space there that I want to kind of develop at the same time. But I think that I'll work in later down the road. But I think for me, it's a matter of trying to find a balance between, you got the junior program, so that I know I can deal, right?
Right.
But then you got the collegiate programs, and then you've got the adult programs that are coming in and are getting really busy. Mm-hmm. And it's the time, it's the balance that's going to end up happening. I think this coming fall, it's going to just kind of blow up, and I think I got to get a little bit more, you know, control over it.
Yeah. All my contemporaries, I'm in my mid 50s. They're all playing pickleball now.
Right.
Do you guys? They play pickleball at your place?
So you know, Randy and I talked about that. We could do that, but we're so busy with tennis that it's just not. And I said, if there's a day in the week that we can possibly do it, we'll do it. But it's become so hard. Like, you know, I do a adult program 6:30 to 8:30 Mondays and Wednesdays. For adults that just want to work on strokes, movement, and just hit a lot of tennis balls. And that started with like 3 or 4 people. Now we're at 16 people a night.
Wow.
Mondays and Wednesdays. And then on Tuesdays, we have this men's league that comes in, and they take like 3 courts from like 6:30 to 8:30.
Right.
You know, so it's just becoming a little bit more like a lot busier than I anticipated right now. And we already said like May, June now.
Right.
You would think it would be dying down, but it's still, you know, people still want to come play in the evenings and stuff. So.
Well, hey, we're sitting in the middle of May and it's 50 some degrees and it's pouring down rain.
Exactly. It's packed.
It's nice to have an indoor facility.
Totally.
So what's kind of the status and the trends in the sport now?
So you know, people always kind of think that tennis is on the downside. You know, tennis right now, people don't realize it's the 3rd or 4th, I want to say 3rd most watched sport in the world. And it's I would say that in Pittsburgh, with all the racket sports, with the pickles and the paddle and the stuff, it's pretty much kind of like staying the same. Mm-hmm. But I think on the junior side, it's picking up a little. You know, not to say that, you know, the other sports aren't doing well, but when it comes to physical sports, the physicality of the sport, right? So soccer, football, you know, lacrosse, you know, those sports are still, you know, busy, but there's certain type of kids, certain type of parents, certain families that just don't want the physical
blunt force trauma,
that, you know, the concussion kind of sports.
Plus, I've always looked at it this way, Rashid. Yeah. You know, golf and tennis are sports you can play for life.
For life. That's right.
And my understanding is, you know, there's lots of scholarship opportunities for tennis.
Totally. Absolutely. For all the athletes, you know, I think, you know, looking at Pittsburgh and seeing how Pittsburgh's developed for the last 25 years in terms of the businesses, the hospitals, the whole medical stuff, you know, stuff like that. You see a lot of the kids whom I teach, I would say like almost like 80, 90% are, you know, parents are doctors, you know, and they're more into like the golfing and the swimming maybe, but not the physical kind of sports,
Right.
And so that's also a driving force for a lot of the kids to push through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk business
Sure.
for a minute. So what has been kind of your own lessons
Sure.
from the business side? 24 years in,
Sure.
6 months with your own facility.
Sure. I think for me it was to find a formula that how I can get a kid from point A to point B the cheapest way. I can't compete with IMG. I can't compete with the academies in the sense of all the facilities they have and all the stuff they can give. They're at like what is it now? Like $90,000, $80,000 a year to go to IMG per child.
Wow.
Other kids are like $30,000, $40,000. I mean, it's expensive.
Yeah.
But I can get your kid that level with much less. And I think that for me, it was trying to find the balance of how much reps they need a day, what they need a day, and their commitment to it.
And that's where 24 years of data and experience helps.
Exactly. And that's where I can go back and I can say, like, this guy went to USC, this guy went to Vanderbilt, this guy went to this school, and this is what he did, and this is what they did. And you can actually say, look, they did pretty much the same thing. And and that's if you are wanting that.
Right.
If you want to go to Ivies, well, you pretty much need to play and train like you're going to go to the University of Texas, because it's an equivalent. They're also taking the blue chips,
right?
To those schools as well. So you need to, and some of the kids are dedicated like that. Other kids kind of get to a point where they're like, you know what, I may not make it in the tennis side, but I still will go and play for Carnegie Mellon or Case Western or University of Chicago,
right? Which
are great schools, but they're not going to be pushing that next level.
Yeah. So how would either a kid or a parent kind of dip their toes in to see if this is a sport that's right for them?
I mean, so we're out there basically. All our kids are playing tournaments on the weekends.
Okay.
And parents, and that's how and I don't really advertise and be like, yeah, you know what, we're the best in town.
Yeah.
You guys, if you want to come and do this way. I've never done that. But it's always been like our kids go to tournaments and just beat up on other kids.
Where do you guys train?
Where do you guys train? That's 100% of it. Or so-and-so has recommended you. But that's pretty much how we've actually got around for the last 25 years. And all these kids are at tournaments. I got like a bunch of them leaving this weekend. And you're on the clock with them, because at the end of the day, their success is your success, and you want to see them do well. And so, they're calling you at 8 p.m. crying because they lost a match in the third set tiebreaker, And, you got to, the one thing about tennis is you will lose more than you will win. And you just got to just deal and accept.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it goes.
So how can people learn more? First of all, what's the address of the facility?
It's 141 Wingate Drive in Monroeville. And I have a website, the Rashid Hassan Tennis Center.com. You can go on the website and you can just see what we have and what we offer. And pretty much, that's it. I have an academy Instagram account. It's RH Elite Tennis. And that pretty much has like all the kids and what they've done and what colleges they've gone to and stuff like that, So that's what we have right now.
And people can, I guess, drop in during hours and take a look at the facility.
Take a look at the facility. You can drop in and jump in a clinic and experience it and see if you like it and if it works for you. And just to get that done. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on the new facility.
Thank you.
I know your life is more difficult, but simpler in a lot of ways.
A lot of ways.
Simpler. It's not easy managing your own facility, but obviously with the running around logistically you were doing before.
Absolutely.
And having it built the way you wanted it built.
No, absolutely.
Again, congratulations. Appreciate the partnership with the bank.
I appreciate that too.
And best of luck to you going forward.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Thanks.
For any of you that have ideas for future episodes, you can email us at insidethevault@enterprisebankpgh.com. You can check us out in audio format on all the major podcast platforms and in video format on YouTube. Thank you for watching or listening.